God, break my heart. That's it. That's the prayer. Short enough to tattoo on your wrist, dangerous enough to detonate your life. Not because it asks God to fix something, not because it pleads for safety or clarity or some ethereal peace that smells like lavender. It doesn't ask for blessing. It asks for ruin. It asks to feel what God feels. I'm Theology Jack, your guide in exploring life's biggest questions and mysteries. I avoided this prayer for years, treated it like radioactive scripture because, let's be honest, it's theological self-sabotage. Who wants to follow a crying God? We like our divinity powerful, triumphant, bulletproof, not sobbing outside tombs or muttering, "Forgive them," with blood in his teeth. But that's the God Jesus shows us. And the ones who walked closest with that God, they wept. Jeremiah didn't hand out inspirational quotes. He drowned in lament. Hosea fell in love with betrayal. Jesus collapsed in a garden, pleading with the dark. They weren't prophets because they had answers. They were prophets because they let their hearts get shattered, which brings us back to this absurd little prayer. God, break my heart. Not as in hurt me, but undo me. Remove the layers, crack the armor, shatter the numbness. Let me feel again. Let me feel what you feel. Which sounds poetic until it happens. Then it's chaos. Because this prayer doesn't give, it takes. It takes your detachment, your theological safe zones, your privilege to stay neutral while the world burns. Pray this, and suddenly you're wrecked by things that used to just scroll past. The news isn't just noise, it's grief and surround sound. The stranger on the street isn't background, he's your brother. The war on the other side of the globe, it's your own soul laid bare on a battlefield you've never seen. Why? Because you invited empathy. Not the Hallmark kind, the crucifixion kind. And here's the worst part. God usually says yes. But here's the twist. This prayer doesn't just break your heart. It reshapes it. Because God's in the business of reconstruction, of resurrection, of dragging new life out of spiritual rubble. I met a woman once, let's call her Ava. She said she didn't believe in God until her daughter died, which sounds like the setup for an anti-testimony. But then she told me this. After the funeral, she couldn't stop crying, not just for her child, for every sick kid she'd ever walked past in silence, every refugee she'd seen on the news and scrolled past, every addict she just judged as lazy. She said something cracked open, something holy, painful, massive. She didn't call it faith. She just said something sacred moved in. Now she spends her weekends in hospice, holding hands with strangers who are dying, not because she likes sorrow, not because she's not afraid of it anymore. God broke my heart, she said, but it gave me mine back. That's the paradox. We want a God who comforts, but the comfort of God isn't anesthesia, it's fire. It doesn't soothe you into sleep, it wakes you up, which is very off-brand for most churches. We like clean faith, sanitary suffering, sermons that tuck us all in with certainty and call it love. But if Jesus is the blueprint, then comfort was never the mission. Compassion was. And compassion, by definition, is co-suffering. So if your prayers never hurt, they might not be prayers. They might just be wish lists for a divine concierge, because love without risk is just a self-help slogan. And faith without heartbreak, that's just denial and drag. So what happens when you actually whisper this thing? Maybe your heart starts breaking in slow motion for the woman on your street that hasn't smiled in weeks, for the trans kid whose parents weaponize God instead of embracing grace, for the church that taught you to hate yourself in God's name, for the version of you who had to trade vulnerability for survival. Maybe your heart breaks for God. Yeah, God. Because if this Jesus story holds water, we're talking about a God who doesn't manage pain from the sky, but wades right straight into the muck. A God who bleeds. And suddenly, that little prayer is not small at all. It's a cosmic invitation to feel with God, to ache with God, to bleed where love bleeds. It's not just dangerous, it's divine. Because once your heart breaks in the direction of love, something happens. You start to live differently, not to earn points, not to escape hell, but because you're finally awake. You don't need a reason to care anymore. You don't need permission to weep. You just do. And that's the terrifying beauty of it. You lose the insulation, but you gain a heart that's big enough to hold resurrection. So maybe you've been numb, guarded, waiting for God to comfort you without changing you. Try this instead. Whisper the prayer, just once. God, break my heart. And see what starts to grow in the ashes. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading everything and might even include your ideas in a future video. And a quick reminder, click like just to be cool. And hey, if this is your kind of stuff, hit subscribe for more. It helps me so much. Let's map ideas that can change the world together. And thanks for watching till the end, fellow explorers. Stay curious and embrace the mystery. This is Theology Jack, signing off.